So before we hear from Brother Brandon, I do want to tell you guys briefly what the intersection is, why we're doing this. So the intersection is an opportunity for our Georgia youth to hear from the youth section, youth directors from all across our district. So we don't want youth camps to be the only time that you guys get to hear from our section directors or get to interact with them, talk with them, learn more about them, hear why they have a passion for youth ministry. And so we're starting with Brother Brandon Walker tonight. He's our Section 4 youth director. Brother Brandon, before we get into the word, why don't you just introduce yourself to our students? And if they haven't had the opportunity, I don't know how they haven't had the opportunity to meet you, but why don't you just tell us just very briefly about yourself?
My name is Brandon. I grew up in Georgia, born and raised. I grew up on the very campgrounds that you all are a part of. I am currently a youth pastor in Carrollton, Georgia at Impact Youth, the greatest youth out there. And I am the Section 4 youth director, and I get to serve with an amazing team, and I get to see each and every one of y'all at our youth event. So that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. Well, now that you guys have had a chance to hear a little bit more about Brother Brandon, we're just going to get right into this topic. And so as I'm sure you guys saw as we've been promoting this live, we're going to be talking about stepping out of your comfort zone. And so obviously just stepping out of your comfort zone, just even the term comfort zone is something that you guys hear all the time, whether it's in preaching, whether it's at school. So let's just kind of cut to the chase. And first of all, Brother Brandon, how would you define comfort zone for us?
Well, a comfort zone, it's a psychological state. It's your state of mind and where you feel at ease and you don't feel tested. You don't feel any type of pressure, anxiety. It's basically your home within inside of your head. But as great as that is there's a time and a place for it. And inside the comfort zone, a lot of times we don't try new things. We don't venture out. We don't step out. We don't try to have on new challenges or new experiences. And so it's almost the only place that we really feel like we have control.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And so a lot of times when it comes to a comfort zone, sometimes we see people that identify themselves as an introvert, as an extrovert. Do you think that this comes into play with somebody's comfort zone?
Well, a lot of times people get the terms mixed up. So introvert and extrovert has nothing to do with how you are as far as like around other people. Introvert and extrovert is basically how you regain or how you gain energy or lose energy around other people. So the idea that we should put as far as like being in your comfort zone is being reserved or being outgoing, because introverted, those are people that they gain energy from being by themselves, the recluses, the ones who like in a smaller circle. And extroverted people, they get their energy from being around other people. They're energized by other people. But you can be an introvert but have an outgoing personality, and you can be an extrovert. You can be an extrovert or just vice versa. I'm mixed up, but basically introvert and extrovert should not be confused with reserved and outgoing.
That's good. I think it's really important to, make sure that you don't just put yourself in a box with one or the other. I know a lot of times, like Brother Brandon and I, we can be at youth camp and you can see us being crazy, and then you guys may not see it behind the scenes, but Brother Brandon and I will go back to the staff dorm, or we'll find a quiet corner in the cafeteria at like 3 a.m, and we'll just we got to disconnect. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're introvert, extrovert. It just means, sometimes you're able to be crazy in the moment, and then sometimes you got to step back into comfort zone to recoup, to recharge. So, Brother Brandon, do you have any examples of, just how you've had opportunities to step out of your comfort zone?
Well, two of my best friends are probably the most outgoing people. One is Brother DJ Hill. The other one is Brother Desmond Campbell. If you've seen them, you probably haven't even had to see them. You hear them wherever they are. They're loud. They're sometimes obnoxious. They're just out there. They're vocal. But it's funny because they are the outgoing type. But I know for a fact, if you knew Desmond, he is the type that needs to be by himself to be to regain his energy. And for a DJ, it just really depends on the people that he's with. But one of my earliest memories is actually working at junior camp, and as far as like stepping out of my comfort zone. And for me, I would consider myself as an extrovert, but I'm an extrovert because I gain energy from people, but I'm more reserved whenever I'm in a crowd. I'd much rather sit along the wall and people watch and observe everything that's going on rather than being in the middle. Well, one particular year at junior camp, there was a huge storm, and we hadn't had a plan for it. So you had all the kids sitting in the sanctuary while all the leadership were in the office trying to make plans for like what they should do. So you have all these kids, and it was just Brother DJ and it was me. And so he looked at me and he was like, "Hey bro, let's have a dance battle." Now if you know DJ, that's nothing for him. Like he will scream, he'll shout, noodle arms flailing everywhere. He said, "Let's have a dance battle." And I was just like, bro, I can't do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. He was like, "Come on, bro, it's for the kids. Like, we can't just have, like, they're getting rowdy. Like, let's have a dance battle." And I'm in my head thinking, like, man, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I'm stupid. I'm going to look funny, like, dancing. And then there was just something that was like, you know what? It's for the kids. So we went out. We had a dance battle. And that was one of the starting moments where I really realized that, you know what? I might have felt uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, it wasn't that bad. It was me talking myself out of it. No one else had given me some type of affirmation or tried to talk me down. It was me. It was me in my mental state trying to take control of how I look, how I feel like I'm being perceived by others.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that really, something that I've talked about, taking a camp story and applying it to Apostolic Youth Corps, which if you guys have been on an AYC trip, let us know if you've been on an AYC trip where you went. But something that sounds very similar to that is when students have gone on AYC trips, they just have like this random burst of confidence because new place, they're around a new culture, they're around different young people that are from other districts that they've never encountered before. And so that really helped them in that moment to realize, like, oh, this is about so much more than just me. Like, I can take this time, and where normally I would feel like I would look silly or be out of place, like this is normal, and this is an opportunity for me to step out of my comfort zone. So that's first thing that I thought of when you were sharing that story with us. Do you have an example, maybe something non-camp related where you stepped out of your comfort zone? I know there was something pretty recent, the start of a YouTube channel.
Yeah. So if y'all don't know, I do reselling online. I love going to thrift stores and flipping the stuff online. And my wife has been bugging me day in and day out. When are you going to start your YouTube channel? Have you started filming? Have you started editing? Are you going to, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I kept telling her, oh, well, I'll start next week. I'll start. And I kept giving excuses. And then I finally just like grabbed my phone and just started recording. And if you want to go check out the result of that, it might not be the best video on YouTube, but hey, you got to start somewhere. So yeah, go check it out. Brand new thrift, shameless plug. Check out an Instagram, all that. Anyways, that's not what we're here for. One of my favorite stepping out of my personal comfort zone. I know y'all saw it in the teaser video. I told y'all I was going to tell y'all how this thing right here has changed my life. So actually, I'll go ahead and put it on. So, whenever I was in Bible college, I went to Texas over Easter break, and we went to a friend's church, and his dad was doing a community outreach. And for whatever reason, it was in the middle of Texas, Dallas, Texas, and it was like freezing cold during this thing. Like, it was unexpected. So, all these other booths, they were prepared. They had stuff to give to the people. You see people out there with jackets, and we just show up with church cards and hoping that people would just come to our booth. And so people were skipping over our booth, going to other places. And shortly before we went out, my friend, he had this top hat in his closet. And for whatever reason, I liked it. So I grabbed it and I had it in the car. And then we were kind of getting frustrated and defeated that, man, like we set up out here, we're ready to share the gospel with people, and no one's coming to our booth. So I don't know where it came from, but I said, hey, give me your car keys. I ran out to the car and I was like, somebody grab a piece of paper and a pen and I'll be right back. So I ran to the car and I grabbed the top hat and I wrote on the paper, hot chocolate. If you don't believe me, you can go on my Instagram and scroll all like closer to the bottom and you'll see a picture and it'll prove it. I wrote hot chocolate and I taped it to my chest, got a chair, and I stood up in the middle of the walkway and I just yelled like, hot chocolate, we got some hot chocolate over here. Mind you, we had nothing to offer the people. So I'm standing on the middle of it on the chair and people are coming up to the booth and they're like, hey, where's the hot chocolate? And so then I reached out my hand. I was like, hi, my name's Brandon. Thanks for coming to the booth. We don't have any hot chocolate to drink, but anyways, that took a lot for me to do. Anytime I find myself in a situation where it's going to be awkward, I always think back to that story. And that's why I will never get rid of this thing, because there would be days where I'll just walk around the house just wearing it because of it pulls me out of my comfort zone. Like if you're just now logging in and you're wondering, whoa, what's happening? Like, why is he wearing a top hat? Like it draws out questions out of people. But like I feel comfortable now. At first, when I put it like I left the car, like I hid it underneath my jacket because like it's not normal. I didn't want people to see me. But once I put it on, no one told me to get down. No one asked me why I was doing what I was doing. It actually drew people to me. And so that's the benefit of stepping out of your comfort zone, because you'll begin to realize that it's not that bad.
Right. That's good. I mean, it's something that, and here we go, Bell Worley. It's only awkward if you make it awkward. There you go. See, Brandon, somebody was listening at Hyphen Retreat. If you got retreat, give us some of those hand clap emojis if you remember that word from Brother Brandon, that morning session. So yeah, I think it's so awesome to have literally just a physical example of being able to step out of your comfort zone. I think it's, a lot of times people use the euphemism, like, oh, like you're wearing a mask, or, you're putting something on, but it's not necessarily meaning that you have to hide behind something. It's something that can be a confidence booster for you. And so it's really awesome that you have that example in your life. But now kind of taking what you've shared with us, it's taking something that was from a personal experience. You may have a student that's listening on here right now that may, that may feel intimidated by having that booth moment, may be intimidated by doing, starting a P7 at their school. It may be intimidating to somebody to even just go around their school and hang up flyers about a P7 meeting that's coming up, or starting a campus ministry, or even just stepping out of your comfort zone and, volunteering at your church, whether it's speaking in Sunday school or helping with sound or whatever it may be. So, Brother Brandon, why don't you just kind of take now what you've shown us in your own life and kind of share with our students in the Georgia District how they can apply that to themselves, how they can step out of their comfort zones.
Yeah, so this would be one thing if we didn't have the religious mindset, the relationship with Jesus that we have. Like this is not just a motivational speech, because this is more than just, asking that girl for her number or giving a speech in front of your class. But honestly, stepping out of your comfort zone in regards to your walk with Jesus, it's actually more comforting. It should be less scary. And I'll give you I know we got a few minutes, but I'll give you a brief breakdown. I got 3 things for you. So if you're listening, if you're If it's just background noise for you, just take a moment and at least write these 3 things down. So when it comes to stepping out of your comfort zone for the kingdom of God, you need these 3 things. 1, you need to know who Jesus is. 2, you need to get over yourself. 3, you need to surround yourself with people who also want to step out of their comfort zone for the sake of advancing the kingdom. And so the reason I say that is, like, as Christians, we oftentimes put so much pressure on ourselves. We walk into our schools and we think, man, how am I going to reach everybody? How am I going to do this calling that I felt at camp whenever I was crying all those tears and had all the snot bubbles and had the altar calls and all of these moments? How am I going to do that? And we place so much pressure on ourselves. But if you know who Jesus is, you know that he's not going to give us a task that his hand isn't a part of. It's only whenever we try to control it and we stay in our comfort zone and do the work in the will of God in our comfortability, in our control, under our terms, under our time, that's when it becomes difficult. Because I've learned, and I'm still learning, even to this day, I'm still learning that, you know, if it's too big for you, let it go. And everything that God calls for you, it should be too big for you, because if I could do it, I get the glory. But if I'm doing it for him, it doesn't matter who says what again about me. It doesn't matter like who thinks what. It's like, at the end of the day, as long as he's pleased with it, I'm here for it. And so second thing, like that's where it goes into the second thing, like, forget about yourself, because it's not about you're not getting the attention, you're not getting the glory. So forget it, get over yourself. If you don't have all the skills and all the talent, it doesn't matter. One of my newest friends, I don't know if he's in here or not, but Will Spriggs, he's out of Maryland. He came and he taught our youth group, and it actually stuck with me. And it's part of it goes in great with this lesson, is that, you know, we ask God for boldness, but whenever in our walk with God, boldness is not going back to being outgoing or being reserved or introverted or extroverted. In the kingdom of God, being bold is being obedient, because whatever God asks you to do is more than likely going to be opposite of your flesh. It's going to be opposite of what you naturally want to do. And you being bold or being obedient, you are stepping out of your comfort zone. So basically, like, we think of boldness as somebody who's out of their comfort zone. And so for a long time, I thought, like, I looked at my friends, DJ and Desmond, I was like, I want to be like them, because, like, whenever they speak, people are looking at them, people are watching them. But that's not what Jesus is interested in. Like, it's outgoing does not equal success in ministry. What equals success in ministry is obedience, because even though they have that outgoing, out in front personality, there are times where I know where God is like, hey, I need you to go talk to this one person. Whereas doing that, there's no limelight, there's no this, that, and the other. And so it doesn't just go ahead and erase that out of your mind. If you're not the outgoing type, it's okay. And if you are the outgoing type, it's also okay, because what you need to do is to be obedient, to be bold. Real quick, I got 2 biblical stories that I want to share. That at first I've known these stories, I've learned these stories, but I've never really thought about them in the sense of stepping out of your comfort zone. So in Acts chapter 8, we find Philip. He's preaching in Samaria. So the reason he ends up in Samaria is because Saul, who had not been converted to Paul, he's persecuting the church. It says he's going door to door and basically either throwing people in prison or killing them. So automatic, uncomfortable situation. So what it says is that he's in Jerusalem and he is pursuing all of the believers. So they begin to scatter. They begin to go to Judea. They begin to go to Samaria. But they never forgot their purpose. Yes, they were in an uncomfortable situation, but what did they do whenever they scattered? They preached the gospel. It didn't matter how uncomfortable the situation was. The mission was, I am still going to preach. And so Philip finds himself in Samaria. And what's great about this story is that, like, when you step out of your comfort zone, you don't know who you're going to affect. So there was a man named Simon the Sorcerer, and everybody knew him because he performed all this magic. He wowed the multitudes, all the crowds. They knew him. They even referred to him as the power of God. But whenever Philip, he just began to preach. Mind you, he's running from Saul. And so if he's drawing all this attention to himself, Saul's going to hear about it, and Saul's going to end up chasing after him. But he steps out of his comfort zone and still performs, and he's obedient, and he preaches the gospel. And what happens in Samaria is that this sorcerer who everybody knew and referred to as the power of God, if you look in chapter 8 and verse 13, it says that even he believed. He started following Philip, and he was amazed at all the things that God did through him. This is a man who had all the tricks. He could do all this divination stuff and wowed the crowds. But when he saw the true power of God, the man of the city was won over by the obedience of a man running for his life. And the second one I think about are the 4 leprous men. At this time, Israel was at war, and these 4 leprous men, if you know anything about, biblical history or whatnot, the leprous men had to be outside of the city. They had to be separated from everyone. So Israel is at war. They're being starved out by the enemy. And there's no food, there's nothing. So these leprous men, they're already not living in the community, but they're out in the outskirts, and they definitely don't have any food. So they start to have a conversation with themselves. Let me pull it up real quick. It says, now there were 4 men with leprosy sitting at the entrance of the city gates, and this is their conversation. Why should we sit here waiting to die? They asked each other. We will starve if we stay here, but with the famine in the city, and basically we'll starve if we stay here, we'll starve if we go back. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the enemy's camp and basically see what happens. And I know we think about that story, and that's like a real shouting, like woo story. But if you think about it, that's us. If we're in this world and we're going to be persecuted, we're going to be talked about, for whatever reason. It's biblical. If you're not being persecuted and people aren't looking at you differently, then your walk might not be as great as it should be, because your walk should draw the attention of other people. And so basically they were saying, no matter what we do, we are in a uncomfortable situation. This is not our comfort zone. So we're just going to go into the city. And it's because they made that decision that no matter what, this is going to be uncomfortable. So let's just do something. What ended up happening is when they made the move, God amplified their steps and caused it to sound like an army headed towards the enemy. They ran, fled the city, left all their cattle, left all their goods. The 4 lepers, man, they're eating it up. They're having a feast. But then they go back home and say, you know what? This isn't just for us. We have to go back home and tell everyone else about this. And because of their obedience and their willingness to say, like, you know what? It doesn't matter how I feel. We're just gonna do it. So if it's talking to that friend, inviting them to church, if it's starting a P7, starting a Bible study, don't talk yourself out of it, because whether you do it or not, people are going to look at you differently. People are going to look at you in a different manner. Just go out and do it, because you never know. You could be the reason why your city is saved.
Amen. It's so important for you guys to not just hear this word for tonight, but be sure to apply it to your lives. And we encourage you, Brother Brandon and I both, to take some time. If you've been taking notes, or even if you need to go back through this comment section and get the main points that he was talking through, take some time to pray about this. Take some time to, if you're a journaler when you pray, take some time to pray about these things. Share this with your youth group. Take some time to really share this with those that are feeling a burden for P7. This is something that we need to apply, so that we don't just get excited about stepping out of our comfort zone when we're at camp or when we're at youth rallies or sectional events. Like, this is something that we can live out right now. So for those of you guys that are still on the live, thank you for joining us. Why don't you virtually give Brother Brandon a hand for this word that he had for us tonight, for taking the time to share some personal stories, to share some ways that God has done a work in his life, and God can do the exact same in yours. Be on the lookout for the next episode of The Intersection. We're going to be doing this once a month. This month, Brother Brandon, we will be announcing the sectional director that I'll be interviewing for the month of December. This is so awesome. Thank you guys so much for being on here. Thank you to all of our GDYM committee members that joined with us. And guys, never forget that we love you. We want to connect with you. Section 4 with Brother Brandon, or you're in another section in our district, be sure you're in contact with your section directors. That's what the intersection is all about. We're wanting everybody to connect with our committee members, those that are passionate, think about you, pray about you all throughout the year. So let's unify as a district. We love y'all. Have a great rest of the night. And it's only awkward if you make it awkward. Am I right?
There. Love y'all.
Everybody, good night.